Hi, welcome to Homeownership Heroes, sponsored by Caliber Home Loans. I'm your host, Brian Burjans, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Rick Bentoncourt, the incoming NAMB president. Rick, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. So, Rick, for our viewing audience, can you please tell everybody why you're so passionate about helping the military and veteran community?
All I ever wanted to be growing up was a soldier. I have asthma, so I tried enlisting twice. Both times said no, but I actually have a very, very long line of military in my family. In fact, my father's father was with the 36th Infantry Division, 3rd Battalion, 143rd Regiment.
Wow.
And his unit liberated Rome in early '44, and his unit actually met the Pope.
Oh, wow.
So for me, and my whole family served, so for me, I feel this is one of the best ways that professionals like you and I can actually give back to a veteran for what they've done for us, is by helping them with the largest financial transaction that they're going to make.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that, and on behalf of all the veterans, I thank you for your service helping us.
Daniel, you're very welcome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in a segue to that, what would you say, because from your seat, you're not only the incoming president for NAMB, but you're also what I would consider an elite VA producer or practitioner per se. What would you say is, the biggest challenges you see for our military and veterans trying to buy homes right now?
I think it's education. I think that there's a lot of stigmas and rumors still out there from the VA loan was 1943 was created.
Sure.
And there's been things that have just been lingering around in the industry, whether it's with the real estate community, whether it's the mortgage community, the lender community. I don't feel there's enough education out there to help our veterans. So when you guys go through ETS out, and you go through TAPS, there's nothing about this benefit. And then our veterans have to rely on internet, Google, or other things.
Sure.
And you know as well as I do, the VA is a phenomenal organization, but it wasn't designed to disseminate information out to its military community.
What?
Really?
Yeah. What, the VA?
You serious?
Not disseminating information?
But I think if we could get over that stumbling block, that'll definitely help our utilization numbers go up. I mean, you and I were just talking about how low they are in some of our states. So.
Yeah, so speaking of the low utilization numbers, do you think that, we talked about education, do you think it's also educating the consumer as well? You think that's a big part?
Well, yeah. I mean, our veterans need to know exactly how this benefit works, right? It's not a loan program, like we talked about. It's not something we can go change in a matter of hours with a couple people in a strike of a pen.
Sure.
This is an actual benefit that they earned, our men and women, with their honorable service. And we need to do more, whether it's seminars or it's stuff like this. I mean, Caliber Home Loans coming out, setting up a TV show where we can blast it through all different types of social media aspects and get our veterans to watch and learn and understand and do their due diligence and compare and go here and understand the benefit itself. So we need to do much, much more than what's being done right now, both as the VA, but more importantly as professionals like you and I, who are practitioners, and I think that's a great word to identify ourselves. But we need to do more, and I think if we started doing more, you'd see these utilization numbers creep up in our individual states.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny you bring that up, because I always find that you got the period of vets from like the 80s and the 90s who mainly served in the reserves, right? Yeah. So I was prior active duty, and now I'm a reservist now, but I get their challenges. The VA didn't come to the table with the reservist becoming VA home loan benefit eligible until like 98 or something like that.
That's right, yes.
So what I've seen, and tell me what your perspective on this is, they don't even have the knowledge of understanding that they even qualify for the benefit. So if you're a loan officer and you're not very
absolutely know where you're going,
fired up about the VA home loan program, that person's probably going to end up in an FHA loan, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and nothing burns my tush more than that when I get a veteran and I do some research and you take a good application, you do a great inquisition of this person sitting in front of you, and you're like, you're in an FHA loan, but you're a veteran? And I go, all right, well, maybe there was an issue. Oh, no, I'm honorable service, served 10 years, and you're like, but you're right. I can't tell you how many times I've had a reservist National Guard that had a deployment under U.S. Code Title 10 and didn't even realize that 90-day service overseas got them eligibility for the VA benefit. So, in our state, we created a special program designed specifically for our reservists and our National Guardsmen, which is a great program.
Oh, wow.
We can talk about that another time, but we got to hit out. We got to hit out in that room, that realm of veterans with reserves and National Guard, because I think we're missing the boat.
Yeah, and to your point, obviously if you're not well educated on the whole process of a reservist, what the qualifying service
Correct.
even looks like,
Exactly.
you're going to go into WebLGY, which is a system that is used to create certificates of eligibility, by the way. You're going to go into that system, and your co-pilot's going to pull some stuff up, and it's going to give you the rut-row. Yeah, and need to submit electronic app, where I think 99% of us all fail.
Oh yeah.
Right. So if you're not up to speed on what it takes to be a reservist to qualify, that person's getting put in the wrong
I can't tell you how many times I've talked to the loan officers, and I'm like, all right, so they'll call me up and they'll be like, hey Rick, I'm trying to get this reservist a COE. That's a certificate of eligibility, by the way, you guys. And I go, okay, where's the NGB 22 form? They're like, what the hell's that?
Right.
And you go, well, that's the retirement point statement, and then it goes into this. So there are different forms for the reservists, National Guard, and active duty and veterans. And I think, the minute that there's a stumble to try to do that, they get nervous. Oh, you're not eligible. Here comes FHA.
Yep.
And then they lose out on saving thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people are, I guess, looking for the quick and easy.
Yep.
So, you reach out. With reservists, the burden of proof on their service is on them, right? Active duty, lo and hold and believe it, that the VA and the reserve community don't talk behind the scenes.
No communication.
So when you go back to your, customer and you're like, hey, I need some military documents, and they don't have it, people fold up like a lawn chair and they go a different direction instead of trying to help them get that VA loan, which drives me nuts.
And you guys, a lot of times, our reservists and National Guard have been so disconnected from the unit for so long, they don't know who their personnel first sergeant is, and so they can't get that NGB 22, that point statement, or what it is. So they sit there foundering, and then what we have to do, right? And this is a lot of fun. I know you love doing this. We got to go to the National Archives.
Oh yeah.
And that's a fun 3, 4, 5 week process, and then you get somebody, and it works well. But if you're in a loan officer, you don't know the process to either do a fax to the National Archives or the online filing system. Again, you're gonna have a veteran that's gonna be stuck without maybe using his benefit.
Yeah, so I want to kind of change speed here and go to something that I know is kind of near and dear to your heart. So I travel a ton, speaking to lots of realtors, and I know you do too.
Yes.
And I always get the a couple of things that are right out the gate. Like poor credit, never close, and for some weird reason, the real estate community thinks that vets equal subprime.
Oh, it's what is, again. It's not the National Association of Realtors' fault. It's just they're so big and there's so many new real estate agents coming in all the time.
Yep.
And again, it's a lack of education and training that they need to rely on us for that.
Yes.
Okay. And when they do that, they find out certain things like, when you look at the LMA Origination Insight Report, right? There's no statistical difference between a conventional loan closing and a VA loan closing.
Right.
They're actually the same process. You have a variety of different options with the VA that, it is not subprime. It is not a long process by any means. I mean, my company, 37 days on average to close a VA loan, and I know Caliber's probably right around the same.
Yeah.
So those are the things that where we can take professionals who are passionate advocates to go out to our real estate community and be like, hey, by the way, there's been some information, it's not accurate. We're wealths of knowledge. We want you to count us as a resource and help you guys help our veterans with their benefit.
So one of the things, I know you attend the Veterans Lending Conference, so do I. And one of the cool things they started doing 2 years ago, which I thought was really helpful, is giving everybody their scorecard.
I love that.
And while I think the VA's perspective on the scorecard was actually to point out our deficiencies as lenders, however, what I really loved was the national characteristics of the VA loan. And what I think is very helpful is I don't think people understand what the actual military and veteran client look like today. They think for some reason this is 1980s where, it used to be beer money, fun money, and then pay the bills, where now it's shifted into pay your bills, pay your bills. I noticed last year average credit score for a VA transaction was like 712.
Correct.
Lots of assets, lots of residual income, and when I normally talk to people about that, that actually blows your mind.
Blows your mind because you think about it when you look at those averages and you say, and you tell a real estate agent, on average they had about 26,000. I think it was 23 to 26,000 in average assets is what the veteran had when they consummated a VA transaction. And they go, wait a minute, this is 100% financing. I go, exactly. I go, we all know that the size of a down payment doesn't correlate to performance of a loan or your ability to close. It has nothing to do with that. But what does have ability to close on a loan or that performance is the fact that they have liquidity left over once they consummate the deal. So it's actually a brilliant, when you talk backwards about it, it's brilliant. Why isn't every other loan like this?
Right.
But the residual income is a beautiful thing. And so when you go, and I'm so glad that Caliber's out there talking to real estate agents and saying, hey guys, listen, this is the truth. Because those scorecards, I think there was 62 data points that they brought out.
Yep.
And when I looked at it, I'm like, wow, and that was great. And Ken Kohler, the LPO out of Colorado, he's like, hey Rick, great numbers, and I know Caliber's got great numbers, and there's a lot of good companies out there that can really help out our veterans. And these our VA loans have never been better than they are now.
Oh yeah, if you looked at the statistical data from 2012 to now on VA purchase, it looks like an airplane taking off from an airport.
It looks like they're going vertical.
Yeah, it's going out. So if you're not in the business of helping vets move into houses, you need to get into the business of helping vets move into houses, wouldn't you say?
Well, they're the most, for me, my experience, a non-veteran, as a civilian trying to get young, I'll never break into that circle, right? But I'm pretty close to that perimeter. The veteran is the most loyal client, most appreciative client. I think the military culture and the structure of how they were brought up in that military lifestyle equates to a much cleaner, smoother loan process. Because I don't know, I'll tell you, I ask a veteran, hey listen, I need all these docs. Boom, it comes in a folder, tagged with smiley faces. It looks like a Bill Belichick, Patriots. It looks like a Bill Belichick playbook, because he's like, all right, this is this is that, this is that. So when I'm able to submit it to my team, it's done. Whereas in some of the non-veteran situations, it's not the case.
Well, one thing I always like to tell people is there's veterans, there's military, and then there's patriots. You know what I mean? There's a lot of patriots out there who, are fraternal veterans, we like to call them. You know what I mean? Because they do just as much good. And you were definitely in that class, my friend.
Thank you very much.
So, so one thing I wanted to make sure we talked about in front of this captive audience is one thing that I always like to suck the room out of a realtor room with is when I tell them that by the time I leave this, you guys are going to think the VA appraisal is the best appraisal in the game. And literally I hear gas.
Yeah.
Some stuff falls off a desk.
Sometimes they walk out.
Sometimes they leave.
They're like, no way.
Yeah. But, and I know you're passionate about it too, about Tidewater.
Tidewater.
You know what I mean? So, do you find it challenging in the real estate community when you're working with realtors about the VA appraisal, and do you educate them on Tidewater and how beneficial Tidewater is?
So, I actually teach a lot of the CE classes for our real estate professionals in Massachusetts. And when there's a 2 or 3 slide PowerPoint in my PowerPoint presentation all about Tidewater.
Sure.
And I would say, and you're probably going to be pretty close, about 99.8% of the time, they have no idea what Tidewater is.
Without a doubt.
None. And I explain to them how it works and how it saves deals, and it gives the opportunity to work a file, work the transaction. It gives, and they're no special appraisers. They're legitimate Fannie Freddie appraisers with an extra layer of certification because of the VA requirements to become a staff appraiser, right?
Yep.
And when you explain this to them, it's almost like most of the time you can see like the light shine on Bobblehead head, like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And then I go, Fannie Mae doesn't do it, Freddie Mac doesn't do it, FHA doesn't do it, neither does USDA or Portfolio.
Right.
So you're given at least one fighting chance to either do A, reconsideration of value, or B, win on Tidewater and actually present the comps and say, hey, this is what happened. Matter of fact, I just had a reconsideration of value come in and a win on one of our refis.
See, and I think that helps.
Can you do that on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
No. Well, because if you look at the grand scheme of the thing, when you are grading appraisers, they're your staff appraisers for your organization, and you tell them to reconsider something, they're not going to reconsider because then it's a hit on their performance.
I did a bad thing.
Right. Where the VA takes it out like, hey, don't give this to me.
Yeah.
Work it out.
Correct.
You get a mulligan, fix it. If the vet thinks the property's worth X and the property's actually worth X based on your comps, then fix it before you send it in.
Correct.
I'll
tell you, once you explain the Tidewater, the credit situation, the income, residual, how it works, I've turned 100 or so realtors in the last 7 to 10 years into being extremely, extremely huge veteran advocates for our military. Our state veterans are a protected class, so a real estate agent is actually not allowed to ask a person, a client, hey, are you a veteran? That is considered a discriminatory question in our state. So we teach them, hey, how do you do that?
Right.
And how do you get around it? And those are some of the things that we explain it, and then they become, okay. And a lot of times it works.
Well, I think that's funny you bring that up about it being a protected class, because I will tell you, one of the things that we notice across the nation is veterans not getting a fair shake at contracts.
Amen, man.
So
we should. That'll be a great interview some other time.
Yes, sir.
I think we could spend a whole lot of time on that one. I like that.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Homeownership Heroes, and I'm your host, Brian Burjans. I'll see you next time.
This is Mortgage News Network.